When you think of a big and bold American luxury vehicle, it doesn't get much better than a Cadillac Escalade. This nameplate has been around for about 25 years, and in that time frame, the Escalade nameplate has quickly become the best-selling large body-on-frame three-row SUV that money can buy, at least here in North America. Now, while this current fifth-generation Cadillac Escalade showed up back in 2021, last year the company finally had the balls to shoehorn their most potent engine underneath the hood, the 6.2-liter Supercharged V8, making nearly 700 horsepower. So this week, as you can see, Cadillac has loaned us this 2024 Escalade V, painted in this gorgeous shade of radiant red. And the big question I want answered, for those of you who have well over six figures to spend, has Cadillac successfully created the ultimate Escalade with the introduction of the Escalade V? Stay tuned to find out. So because the enthusiast world has been waiting a long time for Cadillac to finally introduce a V version of the Escalade, I thought I'd start, of course, by showing you guys what's underneath the hood, because like so many other V models, that's where the magic is going to happen. And what you're going to find here is a hand-built supercharged V8. So if you guys are familiar with other Cadillac products that use this engine, this is known as the LT4. It's a 6.2-liter supercharged pushrod direct injection V8 that's essentially the same motor that was lifted out of the Corvette Z06 from the C7 generation, so the previous generation. In the Escalade V, this engine is also very similar to the one that's found in the CT5V Blackwing. The difference is, of course, the engine swaps out its 1.7-liter Roots type Eaton supercharger for a larger 2.65-liter unit that delivers around 11 pounds of boost to increase the power to 682 horsepower and 653 pound-feet of torque. Now, those numbers are more versus the Cadillac CT5V Blackwing, and this engine also delivers more power versus its main rivals from Europe, the Mercedes-AMG GLS 63 and the BMW XB7 Alpina. So again, most powerful engine that you're going to find in this segment, although technically the Durango SRT Hellcat delivers a little bit more power, but at the same time, the Durango was only offered for 1 year in 2021, and then they brought it back again for 2024, but it's also not as luxurious and not quite as large. It all goes out through a 10-speed automatic transmission. That's a GM designed transmission with quicker shifts, and then the Escalade V gets a unique full-time all-wheel drive system with a limited slip rear differential, so no four-wheel drive with low range, obviously, on this vehicle. Fuel economy, in case you're wondering, is rated at an awful 11 city, 16 highway. At least it doesn't get hit with the gas guzzler tax because this is an SUV. The Escalade V has a 24-gallon fuel tank. If you go for an ESV, the longer version, Cadillac ups the fuel tank size to 28 gallons. You should do around between 250 to 350 miles of range, depending on, again, how, heavy you are with your right foot. Cadillac says 0 to 60 should be in the mid 4.5-second range. We'll test it out again when we get out on the road. This vehicle has a top speed of around 125 miles an hour. It'll tow a maximum of 7,000 pounds, so a little bit less versus the standard Escalade. And as this car sits, it weighs in at just over 6,200 pounds. It's around 150 to 200 pounds heavier versus the non-V version of the Escalade. But let's go ahead and close up this hood and talk about the subtle exterior styling changes. Now, we are expecting a revised Escalade to show up for 2025. It should have the new front end and new light signature that we've seen in the other electric Cadillacs. But until then, let's go ahead and talk about this car, because I still think the Escalade looks pretty good. You can see my particular test car is the 20 years edition of the Escalade V, because remember, the V badge has been around for 20 years in 2024. It first came out in 2004 on the CTS-V. And you can see that badge is very subtle. It's literally a sticker at the grille. The styling of this car kind of resembles a Sport Platinum Escalade, but it does have a couple of changes. First of all, it has the older style for the projector style full LED headlights with LED daytime running lights, LED low and high beams. You can see no fog lights on the vehicle. You have that signature LED light bar there that functions also as the turn signal. You have slightly larger, air intakes, which are functional and non-functional. You have a more aggressive front splitter with more air intakes, of course. That's the sensor there for the adaptive cruise. My particular test car also has Super Cruise, and you can see front camera here, the big Cadillac logo. And in this radiant red exterior color, I think this vehicle has a lot of presence to it. It looks and screams Escalade, although there are still times where I do think that the GMC Yukon looks more like an Escalade. So I am looking forward to seeing the refreshed version of the Escalade show up sometime probably later this year. You can see moving around the side profile, you can still get the Escalade and Escalade V in either the standard wheelbase, which is my test car, or the ESV, which is around 15 inches longer. In the standard configuration, you have a 121-inch long wheelbase with an overall length just shy of 212 inches. In case you're wondering, this vehicle is around a foot longer versus the original Escalade that came out back in 1999. The ESV, again, is around 227 inches long. Now you can see, looking at the wheels, these are the unique multi-spoke graphite gray finish wheels that you get with the V. They're a 22-inch wheel, and you get a larger 16-inch front brake rotor at the front, clamped down by a 6-piston Brembo red-painted caliper. So upgraded brakes with a 6-lug design. The tires are the same size, actually, as the standard Escalade, a 275 by 50 R22. There are rumors that the 2025 model will get a 24-inch wheel that looks very similar to the wheels you get on the CT5V Blackwing. It'll also go up to a 285 width. So you still have a Bridgestone Alenza tire. This is an all-season tire. Cadillac, for some reason, doesn't want to offer like a summer performance tire, which they say that this car is mostly about its ballsy engine and less about being a handling machine. Now, you do have adaptive magno-rheological dampers at all 4 corners and air suspension. It's been also specifically tuned for the V series. You can see there's a big V badge there, but overall the styling changes of this car are very subtle. You can see the mirrors, power folding, they have an integrated turn signals, cameras around, of course. They're body colored. There's also lots of black accents here, black accents for the roof rails. The pano sunroof is also standard. And then you can see on the V, you also have the standard, of course, power retractable and deploying running boards. The door handles also have a pressure button there. That's what opens them up. It's actually like a digital latch system. And then looking at it from this angle, you can see aside from the V badge and the red painted brakes, it looks almost like the standard Escalade, but I have to say this radiant red color really just looks super vibrant out in the sunlight now when it's clean. Now you can see looking at the rear, the styling changes here are very subtle. It very much has the distinction that gives it the Escalade presence with the big, tall, vertical LED taillights. Full LED taillights with the LED turn signals. You can see there's also another subtle V badge here to the side. The new Cadillac logo there, it spells out Escalade. You can see there's also a spoiler back here, which looks pretty much the same as what you get on the Sport Platinum. You can see the actual rear wiper is tucked underneath the rear spoiler, which I appreciate. You also have a digital camera rear mirror, and then you can see the quad outlet exhaust. That's also another clue that you have a special Escalade. And let me tell you guys, Cadillac tuned this exhaust to sound just like a Corvette. It literally scares neighbors and people that walk by every time you remote start this vehicle or start the car. So let's go ahead and fire it up. You can hear how noisy and loud this car actually sounds. And definitely the best part about this car is the exhaust, because it'll put the Mercedes-AMG and the BMW Alpina XB7 to shame. It just screams Murica, but at the same time, I actually do wish it was a little quieter, especially at startup when you are leaving early in the morning. It kind of will literally wake your neighbors and shake your house if you guys don't live in an area that has a ton of space surrounding you. Now, opening up the cargo area, you can see you push that little button there to open up the power tailgate. The rear glass also will open separately from that button underneath there if you want to access it. But you can see my standard wheelbase model has a pretty generous amount of cargo space, 25.5 cubic feet with the third row seat up, which, as you guys know, it's standard. Underneath the floor here, there's a little bit of underfloor storage space. Keep in mind, if you go for the 15-inch longer ESV, you'll get around 41 cubic feet of space. So a nice, 16 cubic feet more. That's going to be useful if you guys plan to carry, 6 or 7 full-size adults and all their stuff. If you want to fold down the third row seat, you can do so by pushing this button here. It's not going to, once it folds down, you can see it will increase the cargo capacity to a pretty healthy 72.9 cubic feet. So that's with the seats folded down. Fold down the second row and you have a maximum of 121 cubic feet. Now keep in mind, the ESV will offer around 94 cubic feet with the third row seat folded and up to 143 with all the seats folded. So that's basically minivan levels of practicality. And that's one of the reasons why the Escalade is such a popular vehicle, especially for big families who need to carry a lot of people, their stuff, and also tow heavy loads. So now let's move on to the interior of this 2024 Escalade V. Before we step inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see here is the Cadillac corporate fob that you've seen on so many other GM products. You can see on the V version, however, I like the fact that they go the extra mile by putting the V badge here, and they also, I believe, color match the key fob to the actual exterior paint color of your vehicle. Now, I'm not entirely sure. This looks like the Radiant Red, but if you guys have a different color Escalade V and you notice the key is also still red, let me know in the comment section below, because I do appreciate this nice touch. You can see their intelligent access key is standard. You have your usual lock, unlock, remote start. You can also open up the glass separately, the tailgate separately, or vice versa, and then use the panic function. This key fob feels pretty nice in your hands, and it's also a pretty good size. Now, as I approach the vehicle, like I mentioned earlier, the door handles are fixed into position. There's actually a digital latch, so there's a little pressure pad here. You push that, that's what opens up the doors for you. This vehicle also offers a walkaway lock and auto lock function where you can turn that on and off. I have it on right now, so if I walk away, the vehicle's horn will beep and it'll lock the doors for me. You can see those power retractable steps also pop in and out. That's standard on every version of the Escalade V. And then looking at the interior, you can see this interior looks pretty much identical to the interior that you find in the Sport Platinum. These are the premium upgraded semi-aniline leather seats, which are perforated. They adjust in 16 different ways on both the front seats. They're heated and ventilated and offer a massage function. That's standard on every version of the Escalade V. It better be, considering the price tag. I also appreciate the way the seats look with the quilted leather, with the contrast stitching and piping. You have a 36 speaker AKG studio audio system, which again, 36 speakers is a crap ton, and the sound quality in this car also sounds really good. If you guys are an audiophile, that's standard equipment, so you don't have to pay extra for any of that. You can see, I also appreciate how the controls are located where you'd expect them to be on the seats. The leather feels pretty high quality. It also feels really plush, although I will say that the seat bottom cushioning, I expected it to be a little bit cushier. On longer road trips, I noticed that my bottom was hurting on longer trips. They also don't have really any aggressive bolstering, so these are essentially the same seats that you find in the Sport Platinum, which is kind of surprising. I was hoping that they would have done a unique seat for the Escalade V. You can see the door panel also has beautiful real leather stitching, really nice dark finish wood with alloy trim, heated and cooled seat controls over here. You have two-person memory, which is what you expect only on the driver's side. Some vehicles offer three-person or memory on the passenger side. You have padded leather over here, more contrasting stitching, aluminum accented door handle. Down here it is hard touch plastic, which is a little unacceptable considering the price point of this car. No metal speakers, but you can see there's some metal accents, and overall it makes a nice first impression. But again, there is a revised interior coming for 2025. We haven't seen it yet. We've only seen spy photos, but I imagine it's going to be similar to what you also find in the Escalade IQ. Now, stepping inside, you can see the step bar, or the retractable running board, definitely is great for helping you get into the vehicle. And then, being that this is their flagship model, it does have a soft closed door, which is again what I expect for a vehicle like this. But if you want to close it the usual way, the door, I will say, doesn't have the most solid sounding thunk. There's a little bit of a rattle there, so I didn't really appreciate that. It didn't add to that level of quality. Now, getting inside the vehicle, turning it on, you can see the start stop button is where you'd expect it to be. And literally every time you start this car up, it will wake up your neighbors. It will scare children if they're standing behind you, or even scare adults. And it's just an insanely loud exhaust every time you start the vehicle up. Now, in terms of the interior tech, this hasn't really changed since the Escalade first debuted. You can see it does still have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And then you have the company's curved 38-inch OLED display. This was very impressive when it first showed up. It's basically a marriage of a 14.2-inch digital instrument cluster, a 7-inch screen over here that's also a touchscreen where you can, adjust that. And then there's a 9-inch screen over here in the center, but you can see with the CarPlay loads up, it looks really bad because there's a big area of unused, portion. This to me looks almost like a 9-inch display when you have in the CarPlay function. When you go back to the Cadillac native system, it takes up the entire screen, which looks a lot better. You can see there's the built-in GPS, which isn't quite the same as the Google built-in that you see in a lot of the newer Cadillacs. I imagine the 55-inch curved display that's one piece is going to make its way into this car that was just shown in the Escalade IQ. I suspect that also will lose the Apple CarPlay functionality because Cadillac says they're removing it for all their vehicles for 2025, which I think is a mistake. But again, I haven't lived with GM's new Google-based system without the CarPlay. You can see there's some nice materials in this vehicle. There's beautiful leather stitching over the, basically the two screens over here. Again, this is a combination of 3 screens to create a big 38-inch screen. There's more leather here on the upper portion, more of that dark wood trim. If you guys don't like black, Cadillac does offer a dark auburn, which is like a burgundy interior, but no light color interiors are available on the V. You can see the dash vents are traditional in the way that they are adjusted via this little plastic tab, which is nice. You have tri-zone climate control. You have a V drive mode here along with your lane keep assist, auto hold function. The steering wheel, you can see, is essentially the same wheel from the Sport Platinum. You just get the V badge here and maybe a little bit more aggressive bolstering. I do appreciate the metal paddle shifters. My test car also has the Super Cruise function, which Super Cruise is still one of the best in the industry. Although I will say that my particular test car, I had a chance to use it on my long trip to New York, and there was times where it started to phantom brake on me when I was just driving, and there was a car that moved in front of me, or then the car would move away, and then the car still continued to brake. Had to reset the system there. So that was a little bit surprising. You can see you have a powered tilt and telescoping wheel, which is nice. You also have a heated steering wheel. This is essentially the older steering wheel that we first saw in some older Cadillac products. I suspect the new Escalade will get a new steering wheel design. The horn, it sounds what you'd expect to be. It's nondescript, but it doesn't sound puny, at least. You have the typical GM switchgear here. The window controls, they feel pretty high quality, but they're not lined in metal or like some of the upscale materials you'll find from some of the competitors. But again, some of the buttons and switchgear feels relatively high quality, and then some of them do feel a little bit on the cheaper end. I do appreciate, like I said, the metal paddle shifters. There's a good amount of adjustability of range in the tilt and telescoping steering wheel. And then when you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your full top-down 360 camera. The quality and resolution is also pretty good. This car also has reverse cross-traffic alert and rear cross-traffic braking. Now, I will say the cross-traffic braking in a lot of Cadillacs will annoy the crap out of me sometimes, because I'll be backing up, there'll be something really far away that I know I'm not going to hit, but then the car will hit the brakes really abruptly anyways, and then it won't release the brake, and it's really embarrassing and annoying when you do have people in the car, because it makes it feel like or look like you hit something when in reality you didn't actually do that. It's just a little bit too optimistic or a little bit too aggressive, and it needs to be scaled back a little bit. That's an easy software change. The shifter, you can see this is controlling the 10-speed auto. There's a trigger here to the left side. You always have to push that to engage any gear you want. You can see reverse is push forward, kick back to go to drive. There's also a manual mode if you kick back again, and then P, park, is where you put the vehicle into park. You can also control the infotainment system from this little dial. If you guys don't want to use the touchscreen, there's also an actual volume knob, which I appreciate. More of that beautiful dark finish wood. You have 2 USB charging ports. There's a good amount of storage in this vehicle, but at the same time, I also think there's not enough storage. You can see there's a little bit of storage to the side here, but this area kind of fills up quickly, especially if you have 2 drinks. There's your wireless phone charging pad here. It fits my iPhone 14 Pro Max very nicely. Padded center console here, and then you can see, open this up, my test car has the optional refrigerator. It actually will turn into a freezer as well. It gets super cold. On longer road trips, I appreciated this greatly because it kept my drinks ice cold, which was nice, especially on a hot summer day. But again, you kind of lose the storage in there if you plan to use it as a refrigerator. You can see the seats, like I said earlier, high quality leather. They are comfortable and supportive, but the bottom cushion could be a little bit softer. Just wish they were a little bit more unique and aggressively bolstered, which would have been nice. You can see the glove compartment here is damped and lined with felt. It's a decent size. You can see it fits in, it fits some nice stuff in there if you guys need to hide away some things. You have a digital camera rearview mirror, which you can also go to a standard rearview mirror. Suede Alcantara on the headliner. The sunroof, you can see, is standard. It goes into the second row, lets in a lot of light, which I really appreciate. The ambient lighting in this car also is pretty nice. It is interchangeable, but it's not quite as nice as what you're gonna get from some of the German brands. I also appreciate the additional speakers here. I mean, there's 36 speakers in this car, so it's got a really nice sound system. But overall, the interior of the Escalade V is pretty much the same as what you're gonna see in the regular Escalade. It just has a couple of V badging here, some unique color options. But again, we are expecting a revised version to show up for 2025. Moving to the back seat of the Escalade V, this is where this car should be a pretty easy sell, especially to your significant other, because of the fact that it's based off of the Escalade. Now, first of all, opening the door, the materials back here are the same stuff from the front seat area. So you can see you have wood, metal, leather stitching. No retractable shades though. That should have been included, especially at this price point. Padded leather over here, still auto up down for all 4 windows, but down here it is hard touch plastic. And then you can see with the standard captain's chairs, this vehicle is limited to seating up to 7 people. You can get up to 8 seats in other versions of the Escalade, but these captain's chairs, they offer a ton of space, a ton of comfort. They're also heated, but sadly not ventilated. So that's where some competitors offer cooled second row seats and massaging second row seats, not so on the Escalade, and I think that's a missed opportunity. Now, getting inside, you can see the grab handle here is nice, and it's also leather lined. As I get inside the vehicle, you can see, shut the door. The door has that same kind of clunky thunk, not quite as nice as some competitors. And then you can see these seats are manually adjustable. So I can move the seat all the way back like this, or I can move it up. this is the most it moves up to give rear seat passengers a little bit more space. But with all the way back, Cadillac says there's 41 inches of legroom back here. 41 inches is pretty much near the top of the class. My particular test car also has 2 rear seat infotainment systems where you can actually, stream Google you can go to web browsing, you can go to YouTube, for example, you can stream movies. These are 2 12.9-inch displays, and it looks really modern and sophisticated. They're basically 2 tablets mounted on the actual seat backs. You have here, you can see there's tri-zone climate control with 3-level heated rear seats, but again, no cooled seats. I like the fact that this is still stitched in leather, even on this portion here. If you open this up, you can see there's cup holders, which is nice. You have USB and HDMI ports to connect your smartphone or whatever video game device to the actual screens that go with the wireless headphones. I also love the fact that you have this nice pass-through here to get into the 3rd row if you'd like. The sunroof, you can see, comes into the 2nd row, and in terms of the headroom space, you can see at 5'7", I have a pretty good amount of headroom, but for those of you who are over 6 feet, you may find the headroom clearance lacking because of the fact that the sunroof takes up space. But overall, the 2nd row offers, most of the stuff that you'd like. Again, I would like to see manual retractable vents or power vents, along with heated and cooled 2nd row, with perhaps even the option of a massaging seat in the 2nd row, considering the price point of this vehicle. Now let's go ahead and hop into the 3rd row of this car, because that's where GM and in general made some big changes when they introduced these all new generation of trucks. So first of all, to get into the 3rd row, you pull on this once, which folds that down. You pull on it again, that lifts the seat out of the way. This setup is definitely not friendly if you guys have a child seat mounted into these 2nd row seats. You're not going to be able to keep the child seat latched. So I'm hoping GM will eventually rework that, because I think there are better solutions to where you can leave a child seat anchored into that actual 2nd row seat. But getting back here, you can see the 3rd row is obviously wide enough to fit 3 people across, and there's also a crap ton amount of space. Now, this is with the 2nd row seat all the way back. Cadillac says there's just under 35 inches of legroom back here. So 35 inches, you can see at 5'7", my knees don't even touch that. The floor is nice and low thanks to that independent rear suspension, allowing Cadillac to just give you more space. If you guys want more 3rd row legroom, the ESV, the longer version, offers an extra 1.5 inches of rear seat legroom in the 3rd row, so that's very nice. You can see the suede Alcantara carries over into the 3rd row. You also have rear seat air vents back here. You have a USB-C charging port. You have a nice padded leather covered area here, cup holders, and a little bit more storage. Same thing on the other side here, and then you can see because the vehicle is so wide, you can easily fit an average sized person in the middle seat here. It's not too cramped. You have extra legroom over here, which is a nice touch. And then in terms of the 3rd row headroom space, you can see at 5'7", there's a carve out here, so there's actually a pretty decent amount of space. So again, if you're looking for one of the most roomiest 3rd rows, compared to the Mercedes and the BMW, the Escalade definitely is going to give you the most amount of space for all passengers in every row. So it's been about 1.5 years since I had a chance to show you guys a full review on the Escalade V. Remember, I was at the drive program for this vehicle in Phoenix about 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. So it's kind of crazy to think that this car, for how bonkers crazy it is, has been around for this long. And Cadillac is ready to show off a refreshed version of this vehicle. In fact, we've seen some spy photos of it completely uncamouflaged. However, as of this filming, we actually haven't seen the revised 2025 Escalade or Escalade V yet. So we'll talk about this 2024 model for now. And this model, as you guys know, is essentially the Escalade that is, the batshit crazy one, because we have the Blackwing 6.2-liter supercharged V8 under the hood, making nearly 700 horsepower compared to the AMG Mercedes GLS and the BMW Alpina XB7. This has the most power. It's also the biggest. It tows the most. It has the most space. So there's a lot of, bragging rights that the Escalade V has. Now, the last time I 0 to 60 tested this vehicle, I got, I believe, 4.5 seconds. So let's go ahead and see what we can get this time on our usual stretch. We have it in V mode, which allows you to access the launch control, put it in V mode, floor the brake, and the accelerator to hold it around 5,000 or 1,500, I'm sorry. Ooh! Oh! 4.4 seconds, 0 to 60. Wow. 4.4. So that's about the same as what I got when I first tested this vehicle about 1.5 years ago. And, even though that number isn't, the quickest accelerating, you're going to get faster times from the BMW and from the Mercedes. This has the best sounding exhaust note without a doubt. This screams Corvette, muscle car, American V8. And it literally just feels like a vehicle that shouts. It's bold, it's brash, it's exactly what you expect from a vehicle that wears the Cadillac badge. This is like a modern day, you know, Cadillac muscle car, Cadillac large Coupe de Ville or something like that, even though this is an SUV, obviously. But the sound of this engine is just what really shocks me, because it has so much pull, so much power. We'll just try another quick 0 to 60 run here. This time we won't launch it, we'll just floor it. Sounds like a gunshot too when that 10-speed shifts. 4.65 seconds there. So again, with the launch control, you do shave off a smidge of time, but basically just floor the accelerator. You'll do 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds every time, and it just sounds absolutely freaking glorious every time you do that. Now, the other great thing about this exhaust is it does have, you know, active valves, so which means if I put it into its touring setting, it will get a little bit quieter. However, when you have it in sport or V mode like I have right now, it's constantly making pops and crackles and bangs from the exhaust every time you just lift off the throttle. So accelerate here, literally you can hear the bangs and the backfiring of the exhaust, and then put your foot down. I absolutely love the way the exhaust sounds. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the only thing that sounded even remotely close to this was the Durango SRT Hellcat, which Dodge only offered it for 1 year in 2021. They brought it back again this year for the final year, but the German V8s, they just don't have this same kind of raw, emotional, just guttural sound that just literally sounds like America. So I have to appreciate Cadillac, obviously, you know, for them having the balls to shoehorn this Blackwing V8 under the hood. This is essentially an LT4. It's the same supercharged V8 that was in the C6, or I'm sorry, the C7 Corvette Z06. So uprooted, or up, you know, it's been upped in terms of the power to make 682 horsepower. It is definitely a nice amount for a vehicle of this size and of this caliber. Even when you just give it a little bit of throttle, this engine just makes itself known, and really all you hear is exhaust. Unlike the Hellcat engines from, you know, Stellantis, you don't hear the supercharger whine quite as much. We have a 2.675 liter blower on top of this V8 that's pumping out around 11 psi of boost. You still just hear mostly the exhaust, which I do wish I heard a little more supercharger whine, but the exhaust is just so perfectly tuned, I can't really complain much with this vehicle. The other thing that the Cadillac team did touch is a little bit in terms of the handling. So we have the adaptive Magno rheological dampers with air suspension. This vehicle does have a, you know, V-specific tune where it's designed to be a little sportier. We have these massive 16-inch 6-piston Brembo brakes at the front. Those are upgraded brakes, but we still have the same 22-inch tire on a 275 with Bridgestone Alenza, you know, all season. So it's not like a fat, aggressive sport tire, summer tire, like what you're going to get from some of its European rivals, but still, like, it's going to put the power down nicely. That's awesome. That's freaking awesome. Now, I have seen rumors that the 2025 Escalade V will get a 24-inch wheel with a fatter 285 width tire, along with the styling tweaks you're going to get from the front end, the all-new interior, which supposedly is going to get the 55-inch screen from the Escalade IQ. But you can hear, again, the exhaust just makes itself known. I'm going to switch the drive mode here, however, to touring. We'll go into touring mode, and you'll hear there's a noticeable change. There's no more pops and bangs from the exhaust. The suspension gets a little bit softer. The steering gets a little bit lighter. This is still an Escalade. It's a body-on-frame SUV, but it does have an independent suspension, and it's not sporty. This thing feels very much like I'm driving around in a Sport Platinum Escalade. It just has a ballsy engine. It just has a 0 to 60 time that's about 2 seconds faster. And in this mode, you can hear it's quieter. It doesn't have any, you know, very little road wind noise. And then in terms of the engine, when you have it in this mode here, if you put your foot down, it's still pretty loud, and it still will make a little bit of the pops and crackles. It's just less, you know, intrusive. It's a little bit softer, which is good. I mean, you want to be able to have that dual, you know, tone personality. That's why you paid, you know, such an insane amount of money for a vehicle like this. Now, obviously, if you have, you know, $150,000 plus to spend, you're probably not going to be worried too much about the fuel economy. But I have a feeling rich people still don't want to be wasting a lot of money on gas, and this vehicle has a 24-gallon fuel tank. It literally gets 11 city, 16 highway. You must put premium gas in in it, so this is not fuel efficient. Thankfully, because it's an SUV/truck, it doesn't get hit with a gas guzzler tax, but in my week's worth of testing in the city, with me constantly putting my foot down, I averaged 10 mpg, which is awful. Now on the highway, I did take this thing on a long trip to New York, and I put around 400 miles on it round trip. And in the highway, it was doing around just under 22 mpg. So I'm happy to see that it does much better than what the EPA's number says on the highway, which is only supposed to be rated at 16. You know, in terms of range, you're going to be looking around 350 miles of range on a full tank. That's highway mostly. In the city, this car will drain its fuel tank at around 250 miles. So again, 24-gallon tank, premium fuel, you're looking at just under $100 $100 fill-ups when you're looking at $4.70 a gallon for premium, at least in my area. So again, not the best in terms of efficiency. If you want an even faster Escalade, the IQ is going to go on sale late this year, and that actually has 680 horsepower to start, 750 when you have it in its V Max mode. Again, that's all electric. I'll be hopefully driving that vehicle toward the end of the year. But again, if you guys are looking for the ultimate Escalade that is powered by dinosaur juice and you want something that has enough space to carry around your family and all their stuff, the ESV obviously is going to give you the additional cargo space. I noticed that the cargo capacity ran out when I had 6 adults in this vehicle and all their luggage when we took this vehicle on a road trip. But still, it's quiet, it's comfortable, it's refined, it's luxurious. The tech in the car is dated, but I appreciate the fact that it has CarPlay. It just looks awful when you have it in the CarPlay screen because it leaves all this empty real estate. But I have a feeling the 2025 Escalade will lose CarPlay. So again, if you want this infotainment system with CarPlay, you don't necessarily care for the newer styling direction that Cadillac is going, you know, obviously put one of these at the top of your list, but just know it's going to cost you a pretty penny, and no, this car is not any cheaper versus its also very expensive European rivals. So with over 41,000 Escalades sold in America in 2023, this vehicle clearly outsold most of its rivals by as much as 2 to 1. And after spending a full week with the ultimate version of the Escalade, it's pretty easy to see why this car remains extremely popular, especially for wealthy individuals who need to carry, you know, a ton of people, stuff, and also tow heavy loads. The engine in the V is definitely a huge selling factor, and it better be, because Cadillac charges an insane amount of money for those of you who want to go for the V version of the Escalade. As you guys saw, 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds all day long without even trying, without even using the launch control, is just a stupid amount of speed for a vehicle that weighs around 6,200 pounds and also is the aerodynamic profile of a brick. The interior offers a ton of interior space. I loaded this car up with 6 people and all their stuff, and while we did run out of cargo space in the rear because of everyone's things, that's where, again, Cadillac will happily sell you an ESV version for an extra $3,000. But in terms of the rear seat legroom in the second and third row, you can easily accommodate full-size adults in this vehicle, and it didn't actually feel like it was breaking a sweat on those longer road trips. It still offers a stupid amount of interior space, tons of luxury and technology, and a quiet interior when you have the vehicle in its touring mode where the exhaust baffles are actually closed off to give you more of that luxury feel. In terms of gripes, I mean, obviously if you're looking for a quicker accelerating and sportier handling vehicle, the Germans will happily sell you the GLS or the BMW X7. The Escalade is also stupid expensive, but it's also very, very thirsty because 10 mpg is even awful by big luxury SUV standards, and even rich people, I assume, probably don't want to be, you know, filling up this thing every 250 miles and also spending around $100 every week to basically fill it up. That's where, again, a lot of these electric vehicles come into play, which are quicker, they're more fuel efficient, or they're more efficient, and they're also cheaper to run because, again, $100 fill-ups every week is just going to get old. You know, it doesn't really matter how much money you make, especially when you can get an electric vehicle that's faster, that's also much more affordable to run. In terms of pricing for the Escalade V, this is where things get interesting because the base Escalade starts at around $82,000. If you guys want a Sport Platinum, it starts at around $113,000. The V, Cadillac charges a pretty lofty $40,000 price premium for this vehicle, so you're looking at a base price of $152 grand. That's about $1,000 more than versus when this car first came out. Cadillac's been kind of increasing the price, you know, every year, and I suspect for 2025 it'll get even more expensive. My particular test car, with a couple of options that it has, the radiant red exterior color, the interior package, of course, comes in at around $157,000. So yes, this car is about the same price as the BMW and the Mercedes, but it is a bigger vehicle with more power, more American, exhaust note that's going to also be a selling factor for a lot of people. So if you guys are looking for that, you're looking for the ultimate Escalade, you should definitely put one of these at the very top of your list and buy it while you can, because again, this is internal combustion engine at its peak. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2024 Cadillac Escalade V. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.